Hi, it's Bumble. Welcome back to my channel. This was a movie. I think I knew it existed. I was like aware of it, but I didn't know what it was about. I think I'd like seen the poster or something when it first came out. I forgot it was from like 2025. I thought it came out this year, but I might be thinking of something else. And then I kind of just forgot about it. I feel like that's been happening with like several movies in the past like year or so, like with Masters of the Universe. Well, that one I was like a bit more aware of because I remember people like talking about it online when it came out, and then I forgot about it until I saw it was on streaming. Same with this movie actually, where I was on Hulu. I'm trying to go through movies on Hulu more because I think I read something about the service getting merged with like Disney Plus in a couple months. I'm not completely sure. So as like a just in case, I'm like kind of going through Hulu every once in a while just to see if like there's anything I want to watch. And I find stuff every once in a while. I feel like it's a service I have to check like every couple of weeks, and then I'll find something. This is like the third movie I've watched today that was on Hulu. The next movie I want to watch might also be today is Nirvana the band, the movie. I've heard it's supposed to be funny, which I feel like I really need because like this movie was super weird. I'm not, as I'm like talking about it, I'm not really sure if I liked it or not. I feel like I liked it and then I wasn't really as into it, and then it just went in a direction I kind of didn't really like. And before I watched this movie, like I watched Moonlight this morning, and then I watched Brokeback Mountain, and both of those were really really good, but they were also really sad. I thought this movie was gonna be a comedy. I think it like sort of is, but wasn't really I feel like it's like trying to be, but it wasn't really funny. So it's like I needed something like a bit more uplifting, and this wasn't it. That's not anything against the movie though, but yeah, that's why I have to watch Nirvana the band, the movie, after watching this, because I've heard that one's supposed to be like actually funny. And I'm gonna be like spoiling stuff with this movie almost right away. This is a movie. I'm glad I didn't know anything about it before I went into it. I thought the poster looked really cool. Now that I've like watched the movie, I understand, because there's like all these wires and stuff on the poster because it's about this guy. I just referred to him as like literally I wrote like MC, like main character, in my notes because he doesn't have a name. He's just this man that's from the future. Like even on Wikipedia I was like, okay, did I miss his name somewhere? Because sometimes movies don't refer to a character by a name until like the very end, or they just don't, but then their name will be in like the subtitles or whatever. Sometimes they just don't have one. Yeah, he's literally just credited as like man from the future, so I'll refer to him as the main character. It's this guy that's from this like bad future where AI has taken over. That's why there's like all the wires on the poster, and he goes to this diner, and he's gone to the diner in like the present timeline, you know, when everything hasn't gone to shit yet, and he's like trying to recruit people to stop the AI that's being born in the present. It's like created by this 9-year-old. And the movie has this like whole message of like technology bad, of like people being addicted to their phones and stuff, to the point where like not just because like an AI is trying to take a sentient AI is like trying to take over the world, but also people are like constantly on their phones in this movie to the point they don't notice the world's ending, and they're like basically by becoming like zombies. I just feel that message, like I understand it's important, but it's like so in your face throughout the movie. I was just kind of getting tired. I was like, okay, I get it at this point. So it kind of just became more like annoying after a while. This is a movie that also has time travel because, you know, the main character's from the future, which I was like sort of fine with. You know, you get to learn about the bad future a bit. The main character, he's like really fun in that he's like very eccentric. You know, he's like gone to this diner so many times that he's like memorized people's names, and it's in a way where it's like he kind of knows things about people and roughly how things are supposed to happen, but not like everything, where something unexpected or something that hasn't happened on the other time travel missions, you know, will happen and it'll surprise him. So it's like kind of interesting that way. And he's like really funny in that he's like such an asshole to everyone because he's so focused on like like he's not focused on keeping the group alive. It's more of like, okay, how far this time can I get to my goal, and him needing these people. Like he literally describes it as like trying whatever combination of people he needs to bring from the diner to try to stop the AI in order to like save the world and everything. And he's like gone through it so many times and seen so many of them like die, and these people in the diner that like he isn't making the effort to like be nice to them or keep them alive or anything. They might as well just be like test dummies in a sense. But the time travel thing, it's like revealed at the end. It's almost like not really like a loop, because we already know he's like going back, but if anything, it's actually kind of really similar to Terminator. There's like this plot twist of like there's this woman, her name is Ingrid. She's one of the people at the diner. She like never gets picked and everyone's always making fun of her, and she has this condition where she like will get nosebleeds and is allergic to AI and stuff. And I thought, okay, she's gonna end up being like really important somehow, or you're gonna find out why she's like that. There's not like a medical explanation in the movie. She just happens to be like that, of being allergic to technology. And you find out that she's actually the main character's mom. You don't like have him saying it. It's like revealed by the AI actually. And you know, Ingrid doesn't even know that she's pregnant either. Like she finds out that she's pregnant within like the same scene. I mean, you do get to learn about the main character's mom a little bit. It's this whole thing where it's like she raises the main character in this like bunker shelter, whatever, where he's safe from the AI, but then he ends up trying to wander away and finds a headset because the AI is trying to get people to live in like VR basically, in a sense. Not like I thought it was like literally they would be transported into like a virtual world, but it's just that people are wearing these headsets and stuff, or on their phone or whatever. And because of that, it causes the bunker to be destroyed and the mom to die, and the main character carries that guilt, and like he knows, you know, that like Ingrid's his mom and stuff, so but she doesn't know in like the present timeline, so it's like he's purposely not picking her to keep her alive. Not just, it's like the guilt of, okay, I couldn't save you, you know, when I was a kid, so I'm gonna keep you alive now, but also like she's literally pregnant with him when the story starts, so if she dies, you know, he gets killed and stuff. And it felt like there was so many similarities to Terminator, of like, you know, the whole time Ingrid's going on an adventure with like the adult version of her kid and stuff, and the AI, and it's like the way the AI has this conversation with her at the end of the movie of like revealing all this stuff to her kept reminding me of Terminator, but in a way where it's like it felt similar, but just not interesting to me enough. I don't know. I feel like I don't really like those kind of storylines anyway, where it's like I'm trying to think of the way to explain it. Like you know that Ingrid's gonna be special, but there was just something about it I didn't like, of like, oh yeah, she turns out to be the main character's mom, and it almost feels like a loop in a sense of like her, you know, not already liking technology, you know, when she's like a young person and stuff, and having the nosebleeds is like the reason the kid gets raised in a bunker and like makes him the way he is, and like how her death affects him, and that causes him as like an adult to go to the future, and just the way it all kind of connects like that. I just didn't really care for it. And you don't really see him like he interacts with Ingrid. I mean, he doesn't reveal to her that like, oh yeah, she's his mom and stuff, but and she sort of does become the main character like once her backstory of like what her life was like before the diner was revealed and everything. Then it's not really like about her son anymore, it's more about her. But and I liked Ingrid as a character and stuff, and I felt really bad for her and all. I have like notes, I'm just kind of going off general thoughts in my head. But yeah, the time travel stuff in that sense, with all those all these reveals at the end when there's like 10 minutes left of the movie, I just didn't really care about. Like it made it set up in a way where it's like you kind of need to watch it again, and you like knowing this information, it probably makes the movie better on like a second viewing and stuff. But yeah, I didn't really care for it. What was kind of interesting to me with the movie though is like you have the plot, you know, of these people in the diner that are following the main character, but then you're also having these like flashbacks of like basically what the lives of these people are like before they end up in the diner, basically. And it's interesting because like there's the whole thing of like this 9-year-old somehow building this sentient Skynet type like AI or whatever that's going to take over the world, and that's like already pretty crazy. But like for the most part, I thought the characters, you know, the ones in like the present timeline or whatever, were living in like a pretty normal world. I mean, the world seems pretty normal. Like things don't get weird until like later on, where stuff created by the AI, there's like a cat centaur, for example, where it gets like really weird, where there's like elements that wouldn't exist in the real world, basically. But like the stuff from like before the diner shows up, I thought was gonna be like pretty normal, you know, there's like nothing weird. And then there's like all of this stuff where it turns out, oh, their world is futuristic after all, in a sense, where it starts feeling like things out of Black Mirror episodes, to the point where there was one specific I don't remember if I talked about it. Because I know I made a video on like one of the Twilight Zone episodes, and I started getting like back into Black Mirror and watching like specific episodes, and there was 2 that were really good, and I don't remember if I made a video on them or not. I don't think I did. I should have. They were good. There was like this one Black Mirror episode where it was like people that die and they live in VR, and that one was really good. It was like a romance story. And then there was another one which I'm gonna like talk about in comparison to this movie, because I swear it's like a kind of a really similar plot, where it's this lady, I think her name was Martha, I don't really remember, and she has a boyfriend, and her boyfriend dies in like a car accident, and there's an AI that's made based on like his social media feed or something, and she talks to him through her phone in the same way as like a phone call and stuff. But then that AI of her boyfriend like convinces her to put him inside of an android body, and you know, when they're talking, you know, through like the phone and stuff, and it just feels like, you know, you're on a phone call and being able to hear that person's voice, you know, they have like a nice relationship and everything. But then once he's put in the android body and she realizes like the android, with the way it's programmed and everything, you know, it doesn't know stuff out of like the dead person's social media, so it like literally can't replace the person in every aspect, and ends up becoming kind of creepy and soulless. And really doesn't have like free will or desires, and then it's this lesson of like you can't just try to replace dead people like that. And it's a whole thing, and there's like literally like almost the same plot in this movie. If anything, I thought it was going to end up being more important. I thought more information was going to be revealed about it, and I'll talk about that in a minute. There's like stuff like that. And then Ingrid's thing of like being allergic to technology and her boyfriend deciding to live in another inside of like VR and like trying to dump her and stuff. There's like things like that involved with like the backstories of the characters in the diner that not only kind of felt like Black Mirror episodes a little bit, that kind of thing, like weird warning stuff about technology, but just also kind of felt more interesting to me than like the main plot of the movie to kill the AI or like any of the time travel stuff. I think those were kind of mainly the things I liked. I do want to talk about that actually. I want the replacing a dead person with an android thing. That's like the first thing I want to talk about. I'm gonna skip around with my notes a little bit. I do want to say before I get into that, I think one of my favorite scenes in the movie was the opening scene where it's like the first time the man from the future goes into the diner, where you don't know anything about him or about the bad future. It's like interesting where it's like if I didn't know this was a movie where, you know, he's gonna turn out to be correct about being from the future and all the crazy things he's saying is true, I probably would have had the same perspective of like the people in the restaurant of thinking like, is this just some like not mentally well person who's like babbling about the future, especially because he has these bombs on him and says like, oh yeah, if you try and like leave the restaurant, I'm gonna blow you guys up and stuff, which is interesting because he has like a button that he's always starting to push, and it turns out to not be a bomb. It's actually the way that he time travels. So if he presses it, he goes back to the future, and it's actually just like a like an emergency thing of like, oh, if he realizes, yeah, this timeline is screwed and I failed, okay, I gotta do another attempt, you know, that's when he ends up pressing it. But he like pretends it's a bomb, you know, the whole time, so people listen to him. I kind of figured that out pretty early actually, because he says some comment about it that made it seem like it wouldn't be a bomb, and I thought, oh, I bet that's probably like the time travel thing. He seems really hesitant to push it. But yeah, the main character is like super eccentric and weird in the beginning of, you know, he's gone through this so many times, and he's like stomping on people's tables in the restaurant and just kind of freaking everyone out, and it just was really entertaining. But there's this line that he ends up saying, because he's giving this whole like rant about oh yeah, this is like all you guys' fault, the apocalypse is gonna happen and the AI taking over or whatever because you're all on your damn phones, kind of a thing. But there's this line he ends up saying about like progress is only progress if it makes things better. I thought that was a really good line actually. I'm like still thinking about that even after I finished the movie. Anyway, so yeah, the first time, besides the whole like main character from the future thing, the first time you get like, okay, this is like weird futuristic stuff happening in this movie. So there's like commentary and stuff besides the AI. There's like commentary on school shootings. There's a school shooting that happens, and there's this lady, I think her name was Susan. You know what, let me actually pull up the Wikipedia page again, because I forgot. I remember Ingrid, and I remember the main character not having a name. I feel like I can't really remember anyone else's names. You know, something I'm not surprised by, but I didn't really care for, is like, it's a group of maybe like 6 people. The man from the future ends up recruiting, hold on, good luck, don't die. It's kind of hard for me to talk and type stuff at the same time. It's like I can't really do both. 1 second. But the man from the future ends up recruiting a bunch of people, and okay, I was right, her name's Susan. Cool. And I mean, only a couple of them end up being important by the very, very end. Not that everyone else is dead, but just in terms of the plot, there's Susan, who I'm going to talk about right now, and there's Ingrid, who, you know, turns out to be the main character's mom. And there's like a couple characters that get like killed almost immediately, or they sacrifice themselves in the journey. But it's like you're getting characters' backstories, but at the same time, with some of these ones that like die so early that you don't even get to learn about, they kind of just feel like they're barely there and almost don't need to be there. I mean, them getting killed is showing like, yeah, the mission is dangerous. Like, there's this one woman who was saying how like she was already having a really bad day and she just wanted to go to this diner for like a slice of pie, and she ends up getting killed like almost right away into the adventure. You don't ever learn about her. I felt bad for her. So there's like stuff like that. But I guess it is kind of nice that it was like a really small cast by like the end of the movie, because it was easier to like pay attention to what was going on. Okay, so yeah, I want to talk about Susan's plotline, because I was so surprised of like, oh yeah, it turns out they have cloning and stuff in this timeline. What the heck? It's like kind of introduced out of nowhere. Sort of. Okay, so there's like a school shooting that happens, and Susan ends up losing her son. His name's Darren. He's like sort of important. I actually still am a little confused about some of the stuff with Darren, to be honest. So there's a school shooting that happens and Darren dies, and Susan, you know, is completely distraught because she lost her child. And there's these like 3 other mothers, and they looked like the way they dress and stuff, like pretty wealthy, and they're saying like, oh, you lost your kid too, and they're not even upset about it. And before the reveal of like why they're not upset, I thought like, what the hell is wrong with these people that they just lost their kids and they're treating it as no biggie. But it does seem like really suspicious at first, because it's like they're talking about it in a way where it's like it doesn't matter that they lost their kid, and that, you know, kind of things kind of aren't as they seem. And they end up sending Susan to a support group, and they tell her that like everything's gonna be fine. And she goes not to the support group first. They have her go to like this weird location, and it turns out that there are so many school shootings apparently in this timeline that the government pays, like if you lose a kid in a school shoot, like they die, the government takes like most of the payment, and you're able to get like a clone robot. It's like referred to as a clone, like they are cloned, but I think they are still like some kind of no, I think they probably are just biological clones. I was kind of convinced they were like robots at first. And it's such a weird process, but it like really threw me off of like, oh, okay, they just have cloning in this timeline, sure. But yeah, it's implied that like the other women have like cloned their kids multiple times, and it's interesting because you think, you know, I mean, it's only used by like really wealthy people, the like cloning process, it seems like, until it's revealed like, oh, if they die in a school shooting, like the government pays for it or something. But that's so weird. It's like such a specific thing of like, to like every other person Susan talks about, like parents that have had their kids cloned, it's always because of that, and never like they died through any other way. But it's so weird. It's like that the shootings are such a common occurrence in that world that people are getting their kids cloned so many times, and it's just treated as no biggie. Like Susan goes to a support group, and there's this couple that are saying like, oh, we've had to clone our kids 4 times, and Susan thinks they mean like that they had 4 kids and they each died, but it's that the same kid keeps dying, and the parents refer to her as if like talk about the clone as if talking about a toy, the same way where they're like, oh, we decided to have fun this time, we're gonna just make our kid really tall. And also they say that the kid is like racist and they don't care. I wasn't sure if they just decided to add that as a personality trait, because they can do that. I'll talk about that in a second. Or that's just how their clone kid turned out. And it seems like none of the parents actually love these cloned versions of their children, or maybe just aren't even phased by it anymore, probably having to get their kids cloned so many times. But also the clones are like really robotic and creepy and basically don't seem like your child's, so I kind of get why they're not emotionally attached. But then it's like, why are you even bothering to clone your kid at all at that point? And even Susan talking to like one of the workers at the clone factory also comes off as super weird, where it's like, if you want to pay less money once a day, the kid in like their own voice will end up basically giving you an ad. And you get to see that happen, where Susan tells her clone son like, oh hey, let's go out to like eat somewhere, and he's like, I want to get this specific drink, and it seems like, oh okay, he wants this drink, sure. And then he starts talking about the nutritional value and how much it costs, and basically spewing out an ad, and it just seems really creepy. And even the whole process of like making the clone, I mean, you don't literally get to see the clone like biologically made. It's more so it's like making a Build-A-Bear in a sense. It's kind of like a way I can compare it. Or almost like I can give a better example. It's like making a me in Tomodachi Life, where you pick like their voice, and not that they pick their voice in this movie, but like their personality traits and stuff, and they're like completely customizable in that way, kind of like a toy. It's exactly like that, where Susan has it almost reminded me of the menus for like making Mii's on the Wii, like the design of it. It's like this screen where there's all these different like buttons or whatever, little white buttons or whatever, and it'll have like what the kids' favorite snacks are, hobbies, and it's not like like it's just for that specific kid. It's like just a whole bunch of generic options, personality traits too. And Susan says like, oh, they don't have the options for the hobbies for my kid. And the worker that's like helping her through the process just ends up picking sports. And then later on you see the kid who I guess never had an interest in sports anyway. He's like, I'm gonna go out to play sports, and he's like shooting hoops and stuff. But there's no basketball. He's just doing the motion because it's like biologically programmed into him. And it's just such a weird scene to see of, Susan wants to make her kid like as much like the real one as she can, but she's like so confused by the process because it's like such a weird thing where she barely picks any options, and the kid comes out, because he's basically programmed with almost like no personality or anything, basically more like a robot. But just the fact that these people, even though it's like a clone and stuff, have the option to like pick every single thing about their kid just is like really weird and kind of creepy to me. Especially when you find out, like I mentioned, with the people that were like, we're gonna just make this clone version for fun or something, of the support group she goes to later on in the movie, where you could bring someone back to life as a clone without making them accurate to like how they were when they were alive. You could make like a quote unquote perfect version of your child, like star student, whatever. Or you could basically use it as like a way to make like a new kid in a sense, like someone with a completely different personality, over like with the old one's face. that's like, there's probably some parents like student Susan, and there is one in the movie who like tries to help Susan, who they're trying to make the clone as accurate to their kid as can, and they realize, oh, this clone is super robotic, and that's not my child. And even just seeing the clones, it's weird. They have these like barcode type things in the back of their neck. The ad thing is really creepy. They're programmed to like the military because they're like paid for by the government. Like if they see someone that's wearing like a army hat, or someone that looks like they've been in the military, the kids are always shouting at them, "Thank you for your service." Just stuff like that. And then there's a guy at the support group that gives Susan this some kind of technological thing. I don't really know exactly what it is. And he's like, oh, this is going to make your kid see more, the clone, like how your actual kid was, compared to like making the clone with this company. So it's like she has these earbuds, she puts it in her ears, and it's coming from this little robotic device or whatever, where it's basically like talking to someone on the phone in a sense, where it's like an AI version of her kid. And it was kind of interesting, because you find out that's plot important, where somehow I don't think the movie, I don't think it ever actually explained it. This AI version of the dead son knows things about the plot in terms of like the man from the future and all this, and like stopping the AI. And the movie doesn't explain, I don't, unless I like missed it or something, how this AI based on a dead person knows all this information, and he's like telling Susan through the earpiece thing throughout the movie things that she shouldn't know. Like in the restaurant, they're trying to escape, and she's like, yeah, there's like a secret way, like a secret door, basement or whatever, and the main character's trying to question her, like, how do you shouldn't know about this. And it's because she's being told all this stuff by her son. And it even ends up being important in the end too, where the son is like, hey, plug me into the AI and I can help slow it down or whatever. And it's weird because it's not like it's her son's like ghost or anything, like it's actually him. It's just like an AI that's based on him that somehow knows this information about the future. It's really weird. And then she ends up getting her son back, and it's like supposed to be her actual son at the end and not the clone, because he doesn't have the barcode thing. And I thought, oh, that's like really weird. Like the movie has like a really, really happy ending until Ingrid realizes like, oh shit, we're actually inside of the VR and we didn't actually save the world. I'll get to that in a bit. But yeah, the whole like Susan plot line in terms of like her backstory and the stuff with her son is exactly like I think the episode's called Be Right Back, the Black Mirror episode. I was trying to... Now I feel like I'm going to have to rewatch it and talk about it. I mean, that's basically like what I'm kind of doing here. I wish I'd like made a video on it or something. But yeah, it's like... and I'm going to be spoiling that right now. I basically already have been. But it's like really similar to the plot line of this movie. Where like in both the movie and that episode... the main character gets like an AI version of their loved one that's supposed to be like really similar to them, that they talk to in like an earpiece thing or whatever. In the Black Mirror episode, it's just like coming out of the main character's like phone, and then later gets like a sort of android or like a physical form of the dead person, but like with the AI inside of it or whatever. Well, not in this in this movie. The clone is just the clone. It doesn't have the AI in it. But in the Black Mirror episode, it does. But it's showing like the physical form version of this dead person like cannot replace the living counterpart, you know, the one that died, because even though it's like supposed to be based on the living person and their personality traits and whatever, it, you know, it doesn't have a soul, or, you know, like its own thoughts or anything. Like it'll eventually run out of, it can only go as far as like what it's programmed for, and can't grow out of that. So yeah, that was just really interesting. Like having watched it, I watched that episode like a couple of weeks ago, probably like 3 or 4 weeks ago or something. And then seeing like a really similar plot line within this movie. Yeah, and then anyway, then you get Ingrid's stuff, where she's allergic to cell phones and Wi-Fi. And it's this whole thing of like, she keeps getting kind of taken along on the adventure this time, and it seems like, okay, maybe this timeline's gonna seem different. And you find out about her boyfriend, who's the main character's dad, and he doesn't like phones, but then he ends up getting like a VR headset, and loves it so much that he's gonna like transfer into the VR. He decides to like permanently live in the virtual reality, and he comes home with all of these like flyers and stuff, and it made it seem like he was going to be physically transferred into the VR world and disappear from like the real one, especially because he's talking about like leaving reality, and of course Ingrid's upset because she's like, hey, I'm not gonna go with you, this is dumb, you're picking a virtual reality over me, you know, she's like rightfully upset. But no, it's just that he's gonna like put on this headset and just choose to be in there forever and stuff. Or well, maybe you don't see him after that, and then you find out at the end of the movie like they're in a VR world already, and the boyfriend is there and he's apologizing to Ingrid, but they're in the VR world, so like it doesn't matter. So I guess, you know, the AI's already won and stuff. But yeah, that felt like it would be something out of like Black Mirror too, of like deciding to live in VR forever. Though with the other episode I mentioned about where it's dead people that end up in VR, and in that sense it's played more as like it's a good thing, because it's like old people that die, so it's more of like an afterlife rather than like we're gonna live in VR and you know, still physically be alive and stuff. But yeah, I just felt so bad for Ingrid. She seems like a perfectly nice person, but her life is kind of dictated by her allergy to, it's specifically phones and Wi-Fi. But she has a job where she's like a princess for like kids parties, and she works with kids because she thinks like, you know, there's not going to be any of the phones there and it should be fine. But then you start seeing she gets more nosebleeds because the kids at the parties, instead of paying attention to her as she's like doing more parties, are on their phones during the party, so it's like causing her to bleed and stuff. But yeah, she kind of goes through a lot, and then at the end of the movie, you know, finds out from the AI about, you know, oh hey, you're pregnant with the main character, and the speech that the AI gives was kind of interesting, where it just felt so much like Terminator in a sense, where the AI is like, yeah, don't you want to live in a better world and everything, and Ingrid's like, no, I'm not going to give you my son, I'm not going to even allow you to be born and stuff. And the AI is talking about all this stuff about being inevitable or whatever, and then you find out they're in a timeline that's basically screwed, and the AI is gonna like take over anyway. So like knowing that after finishing the movie, I thought like, okay, Ingrid's gonna beat the AI and it's just saying all this nonsense or whatever, but no, it really does end up being like inevitable and everything. Let me see. There's this one creature that ends up spawning. I mentioned there was like a weird centaur. The design of it is still so weird. There's like some like kind of creepy like character design things in this movie. There's like this kitty centaur that looks super weird because it has like a giant cat head, and its neck is made out of like tinier individual cat heads, but they don't have like necks, and then its body is kind of centaur like. I think it does have hooves though, because like there's always this point in the Go to Stop the AI adventure, I guess, where it's like the AI will spawn some kind of way to try to stop the main characters from getting to it, which includes the weird cat centaur thing, or there's this part where they're attacked by like a zombie horde of teenagers. Not that they're literally zombies, but they're kind of like basically are, where they're like staring at their phones, but they're moving in a way towards the characters like a zombie, which I thought was like really funny, because the main characters are like attacking them and stuff. And then they go to meet the AI, and it's just this like bald kid that has this giant screen and is like coding it and stuff, but it turns out that the kid is actually like possessed by the AI and is like being used as a vessel, and the AI is basically like making itself and stuff. And the kid does turn out to be okay in the end, before it's revealed like, oh, we didn't actually beat the AI at all, where the AI ends up like leaving his body, and it seems like Ingrid killed it. But I thought the child actor playing the kid that's possessed by the AI did a good job, because he has to give like this whole speech, like I mentioned to Ingrid, about like being inevitable and trying to give humanity a better future or whatever. But the kid is like a little bit creepy. It was kind of actually really funny where the main character's trying to talk to him, the kid, and the kid's not answering, and he like kind of turns his head to look at the main character and screams in his face, and the main character freaks out and punches him. And the kid, because he's I feel like I need to give you a visual description. When they get to the AI room, there's like a giant screen that has like all this like weird code or whatever, and the child is sitting on top of this like giant like mound of wires and stuff, and when the kid gets punched in the face, he falls down the wire pile and lands on the floors and unconscious, but it's in a way almost kind of like ragdolling a bit. That was just really funny because it like caught me off guard. And then they have to put the kid back on top of the stack, and inside of the wire pile there's these like creepy toys. There's like this weird baby doll robot thing, and there's like a Barbie with like spider legs, and then there's like these generic looking kind of robots or something, but those two toys in specifically, and in particular, reminded me so much of like the weird toy hybrids. I don't really know what else to call them, because they're like toys mixed with other toys that Sid ends up making in the first Toy Story, even though those ones turn out to be like nice and stuff. Those like really creeped me out when I was like a kid originally watching Toy Story, and I think was the reason that was specifically the movie I like, out of the Toy Story movies, I like never ended up really like rewatching or anything. I've probably only seen it like a couple of times, which is funny because I do have Toy Story on my Hulu watch list. I feel like if I ever get to watch the fifth one, which I've heard it's supposed to be good actually, I do want to watch it if it eventually ends up on like Disney Plus and I go to somebody's house with Disney Plus. But yeah, it definitely gave like a Sid's Creation from Toy Story vibe in a way, but like more creepy, I think, because they also had like robotic parts, and they're probably like controlled by the AI too, and they're trying to stop the main characters. And that's just kind of the point when I just was not really interested in the movie anymore, where it's like the main characters are like trying to stop the AI, and then Ingrid ends up talking to the AI and finds out, about who she's actually supposed to be in the future and stuff. it's like from the point when they go to interact and they're like trying to with the kid and like trying to stop the AI, I just kind of lost interest in the movie and stuff. Hold on, let me look through my notes. But then the reveal at the end is kind of interesting. Not of Ingrid being the main character's mom, but it ends where it's like they supposedly saved the world and they leave the 9-year-old kid's house and he's like back to his normal self and not possessed by the AI. Oh yeah, and the main character ends up getting stabbed. I forgot he's like dying, and it seems like it's set up of, okay, you know, they stopped the AI, but he's gonna die, but like the world's gonna be okay now, you know. And they stumble out of the house and the main character looks at the sun, like the sun in the sky, I mean, and he's like, okay, something doesn't seem right, and you're like, okay, that's weird. And then he like somehow figures out that something's wrong, and then he presses the button, you know, the one that you're believed to be the bomb, and then through that reveal, because he disappears, it's like, oh, this is the time travel thing actually, and he's going back to like reset. And it's like kind of creepy because like he tells Ingrid something of like, oh, sorry, and I think tells her good luck or whatever, or that things are going to be bad for her. And it's like as soon as he says that and he disappears, you kind of realize along with Ingrid in that moment of like, oh shit, we didn't actually win. And now knowing that, you know, because it's kind of like a loop in a sense where she'll, you know, eventually become older and become the main character's mom and raise him in the bunker and have the bad future and all these things that are supposed to happen. You know, that Ingrid is screwed. Like, she knows from that moment on she's like stuck there in the bad future and there isn't really anything she could do about it. And I mean, you do get to see at the end after this reveal of like the main character in the diner again with an Ingrid, you know, that doesn't recognize him, though this time he does recruit her immediately to save the world, and he has a new plan that he's gonna use rats to spread her technology allergy, which maybe would work. I don't know. You don't get to see that in the movie, but at least it's nice they get another shot and he's trying to do things differently. And he like restarts his speech to the diner. It's like kind of starting the loop again in a sense, but like a little differently this time. So, you know, in that timeline, yeah, maybe they'd end up being fine and the main character's there to like guide everybody and try again. But yeah, with it's just crazy because like you go through this movie thinking like, okay, things seem like they're set up differently compared to whatever the main character had gone through. You know, it seems like they beat the AI. Maybe, you know, this is finally like, because that happens with a lot of movies where it's like, okay, the movie's plot is like finally the timeline where they win, you know? And then you find out, nope, it's just at like the very end, just another failed attempt where, and it does seem like it's too good to be true anyway. Where Ingrid's like freaking out and, you know, the fact that Susan got her son back, I feel like should have tipped me off that it's the version of him that's not a clone, because there's no way in real life they would actually be able to bring dead people back. And Ingrid's boyfriend, who had supposedly went into VR, is apologizing to her, and everyone around her's on her phone and it's like causing her nose to get messed up, and she gets taken away in an ambulance and is trying to yell at everybody that they're in the wrong timeline. And you see the boy that had been controlled by the AI, and he tells her the good luck, have fun, don't die, because it's like a thing that's said a couple of times in the movie, and it's described as a way of like in the VR how they say goodbye to each other. So yeah, that version of Ingrid in that timeline we'd been following the whole movie ends up, you know, the fact that like she's the only person in that timeline now that knows all the bad things that are going to happen and can't stop it. Just like sucks, honestly. There was one more thing I wanted to mention about though, that I thought was interesting. It's after oh wait, no, I think it's when when Ingrid is like talking to the AI before she decides to kill it, when it's like still inside of the boy. He's like turned away from her, so she just sees the back of his head, and I realized, oh, this kid has the same QR code thing, or QR code, barcode type thing. It's like a different design, but like probably basically a barcode, as Darren, the clone son. I realized, oh, well, okay, that sucks. The kid the AI is in turned out to be like a clone, which actually doesn't have anything to do, it's not like addressed by the characters or anything to do with the plot. But I thought that was an interesting detail, because you don't actually get to meet the kid's parents. Like, it's like pretended that he has parents, and then the supposed mom says like, oh, I'm not being paid enough for this. Like, it's like another way to for the AI to stop them. So I felt bad for that kid, because it's like he doesn't have any parents, and he's already like a clone. He's not even like their actual child, and he's being like completely possessed by this AI in order to be able to like physically make it and stuff. But yeah, that's pretty much the whole movie. So I feel like there were some things I liked, and there's some things I didn't like. I mean, I'm someone that gets really picky about like time travel stories. A lot of the time I don't really like the way they're done. It just kind of especially for ones that are, I don't know if I can completely describe this one as a loop. I mean, it's like a failed attempt out of hundreds of attempts that the main character goes through. And I mean, it does start kind of from the beginning again in a sense, but it's like differently this time. So it's like sort of it's more in a way of kind of like Terminator than anything, compared to a movie like Palm Springs, where it's a movie about characters trying to break out of like an actual time loop. That's actually a movie I like in terms of time travel, where it's like they're stuck in a loop and they go through it like a ton of times throughout the movie, but they end up kind of just having fun with it and trying to escape. And it's kind of more, I like time travel story. Well, I guess they're not really time travel. It's more like time loop, because you're not actually getting out of the loop, where it's kind of like Groundhog's Day, that kind of thing. And in that sense of like time being different, I find that just kind of more interesting compared to like time travel itself, or the kind of thing of like Ingrid being the main character's mom type of stuff. So it's like that part of it I felt kind of about. And then the whole, I mean, the movie's message about like technology ruining people's lives through like is also something I'm like, because it did feel like it was constantly in your face. It's especially like the people being on their phones thing, where I'm like, okay, I feel like that's enough. But the parts of it where it was kind of like Black Mirror with the futuristic technology warnings about like clones trying to clone dead people, and Ingrid's thing with being allergic to technology in a world where everyone is on their phones, and the boyfriend trying to escape into VR, was all really cool. If anything, I'm thinking like, okay, maybe I should go back to watching, because I only watched like those couple of like Black Mirror episodes, and then I started watching like the Netflix shows I had talked about a couple videos ago. I don't know, I'm not interested in like every single Black Mirror episode, and I was kind of scrolling through, and maybe I got through all the ones that I probably will, but I feel like I should go back. I don't know, I like those kind of stories. I mean, not specifically that Black Mirror is about, like, because that one's specifically like things about the future and technology and stuff, but where it's kind of like Twilight Zone. Twilight Zone's kind of like Black Mirror, but it's like more supernatural things, but where it's like individual stories like that where it's like weird shit happens and there's like some kind of life lesson or whatever. I just find really interesting, honestly. I think there was like a reboot of Black Mirror from like, I think like 2017 or whatever, where it was like, or wait, no, not Black Mirror, Twilight Zone, yeah, where it was like new episodes or something. I gotta like check that out at some point. I like vaguely remember that being a thing. But yeah, I didn't like this as much as I wanted to. I thought it was okay. But I did like some stuff with it, and it was still sort of a fun watch. I feel like it could have, because it like does try to do like jokes and stuff, and there's weird things like the cat centaur and whatever. It's kind of more like dark comedy, and kind of being more like sci-fi than a comedy, if that makes sense. But I feel like if it was like a bit funnier and leaned even more into like the absurdity of it, I feel like I probably would have enjoyed it more. Yeah, so I'm like a little disappointed, but I don't regret watching it. So in that case, I don't know if I could recommend it. I feel like maybe, I mean, I didn't watch a trailer for it, so I don't know what the trailer's like, but if you like watched a trailer for it, you'd probably kind of get the vibe of it and stuff. But yeah, that's my thoughts on it. I wanted to talk about it just because it was like so bizarre. I do kind of like really weird movies like this though, but I think because I felt so conflicted, but there was stuff in the story I like genuinely liked and wanted to talk about, was kind of like the main reason I made this. Okay, anyway, I'm done talking about this. I don't know if I'm gonna go watch Nirvana the band, the movie. I do want to, that will probably be the next movie I watch. I don't know, it's like 10. I kind of feel like I need to stay up till midnight anyway, because I've noticed if I go to bed earlier, I wake up too early and I don't sleep. But for some reason, if I go to bed at midnight, I'm like out, and then I get, even though I keep waking up at 7 for whatever reason, no matter when I go to bed, I seem to get more sleep if I stay up later. So plus I feel like after, you know, I mentioned the other 2 movies I watched before this, I need something that's like, doesn't have to be uplifting in like a hopeful way. I feel like I need like an actual comedy after these other 3 movies that I watched. I don't think I'm gonna make a video on Moonlight or Brokeback Mountain, but I will say that those were both really good. I get why, because I remember watching the Oscars when Moonlight, I think it was announced like a different movie had won or something. I don't completely remember. There was like something that happened with the awards for that year. I think Moonlight did get the Oscar though. I get why it did, if it did. I'm just gonna say both of those movies were fantastic, and I recommend watching them. All right, I'm gonna go like shower and stuff. Bye.